We're here to empower high-income earners to gain back control of your time through financial independence and stop trading your time for money and start letting your money work harder for you.
And hey, if you want to meet other high-income earners on their FIRE journey, join our High Income Earners FIRE Facebook group. Every month, we'll have guest speakers and we'll share about what our team is currently working on and allow you to share what you are working on with other high-income earners. Welcome back to another episode of the High Income Earners FIRE podcast. I'm Mylene Prack and joined by my co-host Cody Ye. We've brought on a special guest for you today, Shawn Rea. And he's an active investor and agent with a firm focus on the power to believe and achieve, and attributes all his success to a switch in mindset to unlock the ability to keep moving forward. He particularly specializes in helping real estate investors look for flip properties and multifamily properties all across the Niagara region and Belize and Southern Ontario. And he was living from paycheck to paycheck, barely being able to afford gas, to 36 properties within 3 years. And his goal was actually to be able to retire by the age of 55, but he was able to exceed that goal and get to his financial independence by age 34. So we're super excited to have you on the show today. Shawn, welcome to the show, and how are you doing?
Thank you so much, Eileen and Cody. I'm super excited that you guys invited me to be on the show. I'm here to, just share a little bit about my journey, and hopefully it inspires others. So I'm really grateful to be here.
Awesome. Welcome, Shawn. So Shawn and I, we kind of first time met in Belize. He hosts a mastermind for people who doesn't know in Belize. I don't know, by the time this podcast come out, whether that mastermind is over, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be future ones. So if you guys are interested, go check out Shawn Rea on his Instagram. It was a blast. Had a swim. We swim with a sea turtle, the paintings over there. I bought my first ever painting in my life. Again, the painter has a legendary story. We can get into that a bit later. But today,
so it wasn't painted by Shawn. It wasn't painted by Shawn.
No.
Shawn hooked me up with the painting, and it was a blast. It's really just humbles me. Like typical island thing, but this, this is only English speaking islands in Caribbean, as far as I know, and just really humbles me because the minimum wage for Belize is at 1.5 US dollar, whereas most of our audience are listening to this podcast are making a lot more than that, right? So a lot of investors are just going down there, make a difference, invest, make money, but make a positive impact as well, right? So Shawn's definitely in for that, and without me hijacking this podcast, Shawn, can you tell us more about yourself and how do you want to introduce yourself besides your bio?
Yeah, sure. So I want to say I consider myself an investor as of 2018. I did buy my first property in 2013 that I was house hacking, which means I was living in one unit, renting out the other unit. So it was a duplex and it was covering my expenses, but I didn't really educate myself or started working on my mindset until 2018. And 2018 was when my entire life changed because I started connecting with the right people. I started educating myself and reading the right books. And I really scaled quickly in 2018 and was able to reach financial freedom within less than 5 years.
What changed for you between 2013 and 2018? What was the difference there that helped you change your mindset, the way you were projecting and how you looked at your finances and where you wanted to go?
Yeah. So when I had my first daughter, which was in 2013, I attributed my whole motivation and growth to the birth of my first daughter, because I didn't have that motivation. I didn't really have that drive until she was born. And I realized that I was kind of following in the same footsteps that I was raised in, which was kind of go to school, get a job, get a career, and buy a house, take care of your family, and live. That's your life, until you're 55, 65, whatever your retirement age is going to be, but that's your life. And you're going to continue working towards that, but you're still kind of paycheck to paycheck. You'll go on a vacation once or twice a year, and you're kind of just keeping up with the Joneses, doing everything that everybody else is doing. And I wanted something different for myself. I grew up with just my mom in a single parent home. And we did struggle. We went through a lot of trials and tribulations financially, just trying to keep a roof over our head and get groceries in the fridge. And as an only child, I was, kind of isolated to that. And I didn't realize that, there was a different life outside of this until I became older. And once I hit my 20s and I had friends who had lived this totally different life and had, bigger aspirations than what I had, then I realized, hey, like there's actually a different life that I could live. I don't need to live paycheck to paycheck and struggle financially. I just need to figure out how to do it. And I think in 2013, when I had my first daughter, that was kind of the kick in the butt that I needed, where I realized I need to support my family much better than what I was able to receive as a child. And so in 2013, we ended up buying that house hack, which was initially just so that we could offset our expenses and we could minimize how much we were paying for our mortgage and the day-to-day life. And I had a goal to buy, like, it's funny now that I say it, but my goal before I retired at 55, 65 was to buy 2 or 3 rental properties. And I had written it down on a piece of paper. I still have that piece of paper today. And that was my retirement plan, was to buy 2 or 3 rental properties. And it was my daughter that pushed me, like, when she was born, to write this down and make a plan for retirement so that I could take care of her and she could, I could will these properties down to her. And then what ended up happening was we moved into this house in 2013 and 5 years went by and I didn't work on myself. Like, I didn't work on my mindset. I didn't educate myself. I didn't change anything about my day-to-day routine other than I had bought an investment property that was offsetting the expenses. And that was why it took me 5 years, because I didn't really realize that, like, just buying one house isn't going to change my life. I need to actually work on myself. I need to connect with people who are doing this. I need to talk to other investors. I need to really do research. And so 5 years went by and I had a goal to buy my second rental property by the 5th year. And I hadn't saved any money. So I was still living paycheck. We were, we had a car, we had a house, and we were living paycheck to paycheck. We were going out on vacations and eating out for dinners, but there was no savings. And so that was when my life changed, 2018, because I went onto this forum, a website called Bigger Pockets in the US. It's a lot more popular than it is in Canada. But I started doing research and I went onto Bigger Pockets and I started reaching out to every single person that I could find in Ontario that was investing. And I started asking questions and I ended up connecting with the right people who allowed me to scale. They gave me the education to move from 1 rental property to 5 rental properties just in 2018.
Wow, that's very impressive. You had the daughter. At first, you thought it was going to be the drive, but you didn't do anything for 5 years. So what happened in 2018 that after 5 years, all of a sudden it changed, right? You were kind of living paycheck to paycheck. But when I met you in Belize, like, you didn't really go party much. You were like, like having a $15 ceviche, right? And we were having a good time there, right? So what changed in 2018 that spurred that change?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny, but it's why now in 2022 that we're filming this, I write down my goals in January of every year. I write down exactly what I want to accomplish for that year, and I write down all the goals. And sometimes there's like 40, 50 goals, like line items that I want to accomplish for the year, and there's a lot. And in 2013, I wrote down my goals, but I didn't write them down annually. I wrote down my retirement goal. And one of those goals was that I was going to own 2 rental properties by the time 2018 hit. And I looked back from 5 years ago and I was like, wow, I didn't even work towards that for 5 years. I don't have any savings. And so that's what kicked me in the butt, because I found that piece of paper that was from 5 years before and I hadn't even worked towards it. And I said, oh my God, my deadline is this year. I have to do it. And so the crazy thing is that I always tell my friends, I tell everybody that, that I meet, that you don't know what you don't know. It's one of my favorite sayings, because I didn't know things like joint venture partnerships. I didn't know about raising capital. I didn't understand, how to get passive partners who were going to invest into me. I didn't understand any of that. So in my mind, I didn't even understand refinancing properties to leverage them to buy other properties. Like, I didn't even understand that. And so the funny thing is that instead of doing any of that, because I didn't have the knowledge in 2018, I actually went and I got 2 more jobs because I didn't have the savings. So I was working as an IT guy, with a decent salary, but I wasn't saving money. So I went and actually worked at a sushi restaurant after my IT job, making sushi from 6 p.m. until 11 p.m. at night, Monday to Saturday. And then Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I would drive Uber after the restaurant until like 4 a.m. And I did that for a whole year just to save my down payment so that I could buy that second rental property. But I was motivated. And that's what I talk about. Like, I had a switch in mindset, because I realized, like, if I really want something, I need to work hard. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says or what anybody else thinks. I have a goal and I need to get to that goal. So I got to do whatever I have to do to get it. Right. And so 2018 was like that kick in the butt. And then I ended up buying that second rental property. But what ended up happening was, after I bought that rental property, I was already connected to people on Bigger Pockets who had already built real estate portfolios, and they had 10, 15 rental units. And I started asking them the right questions of like, how did you get there? Right. So that I didn't have to reinvent the wheel and figure it out. So they were able to coach me. There's like mortgage brokers, other investors, stuff like that. And we were able to take my current assets that I had, leverage those to put 20% down onto multiple properties. And that's how I started in 2018 and just scaled really quickly.
So you're working 3 jobs on the weekends, nights, and then you came home, and then you also had your children to raise, family and all that. But during that time, as you were working, you were just saving as much as you could. Were you also scaling back your lifestyle as well to be able to accumulate as much cash in your bank as possible before you went out and purchased that first or a second property?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, absolutely. I did scale back my life a lot. But the funny thing is that because of how I grew up, like shopping at like we had food stamps, but like we would go to the food banks, my mom and I, to get groceries sometimes because she didn't have enough money for groceries. So when I say scaling back, it might be somebody else might be like, I couldn't even live like that. But yeah, we totally did scale back. All the money that I made from my extra jobs, I didn't pay myself a cent out of that. It was 100% savings. We paid all of our bills. Anything extra that was made over the top from my salary. And my wife wasn't working. She was on mat leave. So 2013, we had our first, 2015, we had our second. And then my wife tried to go back to work around 2016, 2017, and it just didn't work for us to have our daughters in daycare and her working. So I told my wife to stay at home from like, I think it's been since like 2016 or so. So it was the income. So then any extra money that we had that was coming in from my career, I also saved like almost like 100% of it that we didn't have to spend. Anything that was like entertainment, we didn't spend for like the whole year. So we really, really sacrificed, budgeted. I was very frugal. And that's what allowed me to get into that next property. But again, I didn't know what I didn't know. So there was other ways I could have done it.
That's a good summary. And if you would have known what you know right now, would you still work that 3 job?
No.
Or would you do it differently?
No, I mean, like, I wouldn't change anything about my journey. I'm really happy with how I did things. And like, I wouldn't be where I was if I didn't do it the way that I did. I know that. So about my journey personally, no. But if somebody were to ask me, hey, Shawn, like, how could I scale and get from that first property to the next property? I would say the only thing that you need to do is find a good deal. That's it. If you find a good deal, the money will come, and it's true. You just have to find a good deal. And then you have to go to networking events where other investors are already going, trying to network, trying to find that next deal. Because if you have a good deal and you show up at a networking event, there's people there that will want to invest with you if it's a good deal and you can prove that the ROI is good.
Yeah, definitely heard that a lot among the real estate, is that if you have a good deal, is a money people deal, right? If you have a good deal, that's one of the 3. And if you have some reputation, you build your trust, then just all 3 comes together. The reason I asked that question is because you were working 3 jobs, but a lot of our audience here might be making your money or more in 1 job.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, they don't own the real estate empire like you do. So what would you kind of say to that, or how would you help those people?
Yeah, so that was at the beginning of my journey, right? And what ended up happening, kind of came to fruition was now over the years, after, like you said, I had a proof of concept, and now people trusted me because I was able to do it on my own. I was able to create great returns on investment on multiple properties. And I did it mostly on my own in the beginning. And then once I got to my 5th, 6th, maybe my 7th property, then I started bringing in partners. So I started doing joint venture partnerships with other people who might have been too busy. So maybe like a dentist or a lawyer or a doctor or a mortgage brokerage owner, somebody like that. And these people were too busy with their current business. They were high income earners, but they don't have the time to go out, find deals, do subcontracting on properties or do the renovations, find the materials and figure out everything that they need to do. And then you got the tenant management aspect and you have all of that. So once I was able to have proof of concept that, hey, I've been able to do this successfully X number of times, then people trusted me and said, okay, you know what, I'll invest with you. And then you create a track record with your partners, right? Where partners start getting really great returns. And then they end up telling their other friends who maybe have, high net worth jobs, and you attract basically more money by doing really well. So for those people who don't have the time, but they have the money, at the end of the day, you're going to need to find somebody that you trust and that you like, that you will invest money with and have a proven track record. The one thing that I would probably try to avoid is investing with somebody who just has a good deal, but has no track record, right? Because like you said, you can have a really good deal, but if you have no proof of concept that you've already done this and been there before, then there is more risk that you might fail. But if you've done this 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 times, and you've been successful in all those times, there's a lot less risk for somebody who has the money who wants to invest with you. For them, there's a lot less risk on them. So that's the advice I would give.
Lovely, lovely. That was well said. I couldn't say it better myself. I know, like we were having that ceviche, we were chatting about other ventures that you have. So I know real estate is probably your main thing, but is there other investing vehicle that help you to achieve your financial state right now, or real estate is still the main thing?
Like as you were doing all the real estate, were you also investing in other things as well alongside of it, or do you just focus primarily on real estate?
So I definitely started in real estate, but if I'll go backtrack before real estate, and then I'll fast forward once I've already been in real estate on a couple different things that I've done. So prior to investing in real estate, growing up the way that I did, I never had money, right? But I liked nice things. So I liked, like for me, something that's funny, but when I was a teenager, the things that I liked was like a really nice pair of like brand new Air Max, Nike Air Max shoes, right? That was like, oh, I have to have that. And I didn't have $100 or whatever to buy them. So what I ended up doing before I even got into real estate was I was flipping shoes. So like I would buy sneakers and then I would resell them for profit. And I was doing this to the point where I started flipping like hundreds of pairs of shoes every month. And that actually funded my very first real estate purchase, was actually buying and selling sneakers. So I had that hustle mentality of like, okay, like it was an entrepreneur mentality anyways, of like, I buy at this price and resell at a higher price and make a profit. And so that mentality brought me into the real estate world where, I started investing and stuff like that. And then once I was in the real estate world for, 2018, 2019, 2020, and I've been going really hard and buying multiple properties, refinancing them, renovating them, getting them tenanted, making really great returns. So now I had excess capital, right? I never had excess capital until like the last few years. So with this excess capital and learning about investing, you can't always have like deal flow for real estate. Like sometimes there's no deals coming in. So, the one thing that we learned through reading, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all of these other The Richest Man in Babylon and stuff like that is like, you got to always make your money work for you. If you're just leaving it in the savings account, inflation's killing it, right? So I did learn that, over the last few years since I started investing. So I did start putting into other vehicles like stocks. More importantly, I started putting it into crypto and learning about crypto as well. So I did start investing into Bitcoin, Ethereum. Then I learned about some of the altcoins, invested into some of the ICOs. I didn't make tons and tons of money off it. I wasn't one of those, to the moon guys, but I did make some money. But one of the projects, I don't know if I had told you about this, Cody, but I actually started learning about NFTs, and I created an NFT myself that actually tied real estate to NFTs. So what I did was I created like 500 NFTs. People could buy those NFTs, and with those NFTs, it would actually give you access to a condo that I was purchasing in the Caribbean, specifically Belize. It was in Ambergris Caye. So I was going to buy a condo in Belize, and I would give away free stays to the NFT holders at the condo. So they do like a one-time purchase. It was like maybe $1,400 at the time in Ethereum. And for that, you would be given free weekly stays at the condo. And then also I was going to have it run on Airbnb. It was going to be managed. And then a percentage of all of the rental income that comes every year, I think it was like 20% we were actually going to pay that out through crypto. So you'd get paid back in Matic based on the percentage that it makes. So it was a really cool idea. I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not, but we did launch and we raised enough money, and I actually closed on the condo about 3 weeks ago. So the project was a success.
How do you find the target audience? Because it seems like for that type of model, there's a specific niche of people who would be at least understand how that whole entire process would work. So how are you looking for those, and how did you decide like which target market or the demographic types of people that you're looking to buy into that or get into something like this?
Yeah, so it's so funny. I didn't really like do that much research into it. It took me 14 days to create the NFT and launch it on the blockchain. I posted it on my Instagram to my own followers, and that's how we did it. Like I raised enough just for my followers on Instagram, and I never marketed. I didn't pay $1 for marketing.
That's fantastic.
So I guess I didn't think about it too much, but it ended up working out.
There's a need for it. There's a demand for it.
Yeah, no. So I was just gonna say like it was something that I thought of while I was looking at like Coinbase and crypto, and I was running on the treadmill, and I always have real estate in my mind, and I'm like, man, I should just like tie like crypto to real estate somehow. And I hadn't seen any other project. And so I think I left like a voice message for some of my friends while I was running on the treadmill. I'm like out of breath. And I'm like, this is a really good idea. And I think like within 6 days, I started it and it was ready 2 weeks later.
And you actually raised enough money to buy a condo in Belize. And, most people who doesn't know is that you have to buy cash when you're
yeah.
on
So
an
we bought
island.
it. So we bought it all cash. So everything in Belize, we buy cash. We don't have any debt. There's no mortgages or anything. Everything we own is in cash.
It's very interesting. Like the crypto, the NFT part is kind of, another way of channeling money, but really in the back end, there's some timeshare involved, right? You get like people who has an NFT to live in it, but the rest of the time you kind of rent it out. So it's kind of like a timeshare, kind of Airbnb all combined, right? Would you still continue to do that now that you have done it? Or do you think, what's the pros and cons for that or raising money traditionally?
So the interesting thing about this is like, I already have several condos that are on the island there. And the reason that I was doing this, like one of the things that like I've realized is like, once you reach a certain level of like financial independence, you don't really care too much about the money you make. You kind of start looking at things differently. And so I think now the way that I look at life and the way that I look at people and things is like, how can I help people? How can I, there's a lot of people that get inspired when they go to tropical locations and they start looking at like their life differently, and they'll look at where they live, and then they'll look at the place that they're on vacation on and be like, how could I create my life to like be here more? Right. So because of that, I know that there's a lot of people that want to live like on an island maybe, and like maybe spend more time living there than they do in their current location. So how could I kind of help people to be there, but without having to make them spend $200,000 to buy a condo? So this was like the only way I could figure out that would be easy for people to just buy in for like $1,000 or $1,200, and then actually get experience with that, and to be able to enjoy that. So that was kind of my thought. It's like, how many people can I help? How cheap can I make it? And so it ended up working out. And the good thing about this project is that it doesn't start and end with this condo. So the way that I created this Millennial Wealth Club, which is what I call the NFT, is that 80% of the money that's made every single year, it's actually saved. And that money will be saved until there's enough to buy a second condo. And all the NFT holders that have already bought in, they will actually get advantage of using that second condo as well at no extra charge. So it'll be continual growth. So eventually there'll be 2, 3, 4, 5 condos. Unfortunately, for anybody who didn't buy into the NFT, it's now like 3 or 4 times more expensive, maybe 5 times more expensive than it was 3 months ago when I launched it.
And why is that? Why did it go up 3 to 4 times?
Because I didn't want people to be able to buy into it when they didn't believe in the project in the first place. So that the people who believed in the project in the first place and now see that we actually bought the condo, they get the most benefits out of it. And anybody who wants to join after, they're going to have to pay, a premium now, I guess, to be a part of it.
That's so interesting. It's almost like a shareholder in a corporation. You have different class of shareholders, right? Class A,
Class A, Class C.
This is how much per unit. Class B, Class C. It's fascinating to hear that an NFT can create that. And I'm sure because there's less regulation, you might be more flexible even that. That's really, really cool. Since we're talking about your state of fire, your state of financial independence in 2013, 2018, and now is very different. Do you want to tell us like, what's your version of kind of fire in 2018 and now? What changed?
2013, I was probably like buying my house hack that I was living in. So I was probably like $25,000 in debt on credit cards. Most of that debt was from going on vacations. So we spent a lot of money on traveling before kids, and it was mostly on credit cards. So we had about $25,000 in debt that was on credit cards going into 2013. And then we lived paycheck to paycheck literally up until 2018. 2018, I started building my real estate portfolio. And at the time I wanted to replace my IT job. So that was my goal, was replace my IT job, make sure that everybody's kind of taken care of. So I had a cash flow goal of like $5,000 a month in 2018. And that would have reached my retirement goal, where I was like, okay, we can live comfortably, we can pay all of our stuff. And so I needed to make that from net positive cash flow off of real estate, off of rental properties. And I think I hit that probably in 2020. So 2020, I hit that number, but I was still continuing to grow aggressively, and I was still working my 9 to 5. Not all of 2020. I actually got laid off during the pandemic, but maybe 4 months into 2020, I was still working. my 9 to 5. So I was working my 9 to 5. I had already hit that financial freedom number. And then I ended up getting laid off in 2020 I was working as an IT guy. So I ended up getting laid off. And it was probably like one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I was so into that corporate life that I pictured myself working 9 to 5 all the way up until like being a, chief information officer. Like I want to be like CIO of a company, work my way up the corporate ladder, be a high income earner. And that was my goal. And I was kind of scared to leave the 9 to 5 because it's comforting, right? To have that. It's like a security blanket. And so when they laid me off, it forced me into being like on my own and just focusing on real estate, really. So as soon as I got laid off, I went like really, really into real estate. And I ended up buying multiple properties in Canada in 2020 and continued to scale my portfolio. And then so I exceeded that $5,000 net cash flow. And I surpassed it like quite a bit in 2020. But then I also had excess capital and I had started looking into Belize. So kind of going back to like mindset shift, right? Was in 2019, I bought 8 townhouses in Sarnia, which is not my local area. And that was outside of my comfort zone, because prior to that, I had always bought in my local area. So anywhere that I knew and I could drive to. And my first big purchase was 8 townhouses in Sarnia, Ontario, which is like 4 hours away. I would probably like unlikely that I would ever drive there. And so we got property management in place. They were taking care of the property. And I realized that was a barrier, like a mental barrier that I had. And once I went and I bought a property that wasn't anywhere near me and it was successful, and I started seeing that money coming in every month, I was like, okay, now I just broke through a new mental barrier. Now that means I can go and invest in another city, and it doesn't have to be nearby because I know it works and I'm not scared anymore. So I went and invested in another province that was like not even in Ontario, in New Brunswick. So I ended up buying a 4-unit property in New Brunswick. And that went successfully. And that was 2019 going into 2020. And so with that being said, I took a leap of faith, I guess, and I started looking in the Caribbean. And that's why I ended up buying in Belize, was because I wasn't scared to invest like outside of my own backyard anymore.
So Shawn, what are you most fired up about right now then? Because you've done so much so far. You've achieved your fire position now. And so what's next for you, and what are you, excited about, fired up about?
Yeah, so honestly, it's going to be Belize. I started investing on this little island called Ambergris Key. Yeah, there's a town called San Pedro, and it's a little island. It's like 700 square kilometers total, and like 40% of it can't be developed on. So it's pretty small. And I think the population is like 16,000 people. So I started buying raw land there in 2020, like January 2020. I ended up buying 1 parcel of land. I went through the whole legal process, and I ended up getting the title, and I was like, holy, this actually works. I actually own something on an island. And so I went all in 2020. I ended up buying like 7 parcels of land. And then I used the strategy that I have in Canada, which is like joint venturing with people, right? Because now I had a proof of concept that I've done this. I actually sold some of the land and I was getting a return on investment on the land. So what I did was I bought land, I sold it at 4 or 5 times what I paid for it, and I charge 10% interest, and I give them a 30-year mortgage. So they're paying for that land for the next 30 years, and I get a 10% interest rate on the price that I gave them. And I took a down payment of like 10 or 20% on each one. So I had that, and I went and I ended up buying in total 2021. And then now we have about 35, 36 pieces of land and 4 condos on the island. So I'm really fired up about the island, because we're actually going to be moving there from Canada in 6 weeks. So we'll be living there for about 10 months of the year going forward.
So maybe our listeners are also curious too, but why Belize? Like, what about it? What about Belize attracts you to that island?
Yeah. So when I did my research, I was looking for places that are easy for foreigners to own. So easy for Canadians, easy for Americans to own. And Belize kind of just popped up on YouTube. And so as I started doing research, I realized that Belize is the only country in Central America that is English speaking. All the other countries that surround it are Spanish speaking. So it's the only country in Central America where the primary language is English. They teach in English. All their signs are English. For real estate, contracts are in English. So it's easy to access, or easy to understand, do purchases, stuff like that. But also the title is fee simple title, which means that the same way that we own real estate in the US and Canada, it's the same style of ownership in Belize. So you actually get title in your personal name or in a Belizean corporation if you decide to open one up, and you can own that and will it down to your family member. So it's not leased, or it's not, in trust to the bank or the government. It's actually owned by you forever, which is huge for me with the type of ownership that you're going to have. So those are the two big things. And then obviously it being just this like little beautiful island where there's no traffic lights, no highways, no cars. Everybody gets around in a golf cart, and the lifestyle is just totally different. So I fell in love with that, and that's why I'm, heavily invested in there now.
What a fantastic place to bring your kids to and raise a family over there.
They love it. We spent 4 months there last year, and they just keep saying, when are we going back? When are we going back? So.
It's definitely so much fun. And like I visited probably 3 islands so far. I never bought something within the first visit, and Belize is the first one. Of course, there's pros and cons of it. There's no financing, and all of that stuff, but there's a lot of growth, and the points you mentioned above. And I just think it's a lifestyle shift. And if you are considering ever kind of becoming a snowbird, like not everyone's living like in the place that Aline's living at, which has really great weather. It's kind of cold in Canada half of the year. So that was like a lifestyle thing for me. And it's great to see that you're building that empire down there. And I do believe there's a lot of potential down there as well. Thanks for sharing all that. Now we're kind of coming to the point where we're going to fire you with a fire lightning round. So are you ready for that?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. So I know you didn't grow up a billionaire, but if you become a billionaire with the B tomorrow, what will your day look like?
It's funny, but it wouldn't change. I would literally be doing the exact same thing, which is I'm constantly looking for real estate deals, and I'm constantly looking for ways that I can grow and bring other people with me to allow them to grow. So it's making a huge impact on other people's lives, but then also continuing to invest in myself and continuing to grow. I recently got a tattoo on my arm that just says growing or dying. And that's how I live my life, is I look at every single day as, am I moving forward and am I growing today? Because if I'm not actually taking steps and actionable steps to grow myself for the betterment of myself and my family and helping other people, then that means that I'm dying. So I would be doing the same thing. Nothing would change.
And if you were to start all over and you didn't have to work 3-4 jobs like you did in the past, but somebody handed you a $500,000 check and said, go build yourself back up, what would be the first things that you would do with that 500 to build yourself up to get to your financial independence?
So as far as, with the education and the experience that I have now, I would be looking for deals on MLS and talking to other investors on what deals that they have available, and be ready to deploy that capital into real estate, because real estate, especially in Canada and the US, you have leverage, right? And that's where you can make great returns on your money, is because you can leverage 5 to 1. You can put 20% down on a deal and make great returns on that money. So I'd just be looking at real estate deals and ways that I can grow that money as quickly as possible and make cash flow so that it sustains my monthly income, and try to get there as quickly as possible by buying real estate deals that are good.
Quick follow-up to that really quick. Would your first place to look, would it be in Canada, US, or Belize, the first property that you buy?
It would be in Canada because I understand the market in Canada. US would probably be just as good. I just don't know which markets to invest in the US, but it would be in Canada first. Belize would be last, because I would only recommend investing in Belize if you already have the capital, because of how heavy it is on, it's capital intensive, right? You have to put 100% of the cash down. So your ROI is not as great.
More of a lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Good question from Aline, the good follow-up question. So Shawn, I know you've been on multiple podcasts. If you're a podcast host, who would you like to interview? This could apply to someone you really want to talk to. And now that you have a show, you can leverage your show to talk to someone. Who would that person be?
So I have a friend who has kind of taken, this is more of like a lifestyle thing and like a mindset thing. Because I have a friend who I introduced to Belize, who actually, you've met him, Ian. He actually came to Belize and he was working in the film industry, he was a high income earner. He was making over 6 figures, and he came to Belize, came to the island, visited it once. He left his job, sold his houses, sold everything he owns, and he moved to the island.
Wow.
And he's starting a new life there. And so I think he would actually be very interesting to talk to. I don't think he's ever been on a podcast though, but that would be the guy.
If he ever invite him on the podcast, I'll ask him to do a shuffling for us.
Yeah. He's a good dancer.
He's shuffling on his Instagram right now, day 6, whatever.
Yeah.
Great.
And so, Shawn, what are some of the other ways that you like to give back?
I like to do a lot of posts on my social media. So if you follow me on Instagram or on Facebook, I really do kind of break down day-to-day things that I do. And like this week I was doing a tenant eviction. So I posted on my story, like what the tenant eviction process is like, dealing with the sheriff, having to call the police, having tenants who haven't paid you for 6 months. So I like to give back by just posting on social media and like allowing people to see like what it's like to actually be a real estate investor, what it's like to do the renovations, also what kind of properties I buy and the returns that I get on them. And so I like to do that. And at the end of the day, like, as I said before, when I'm growing and purchasing real estate investments in Belize and in Canada, I'm always trying to bring people in with me to also add value to them. So a lot of the times it is passive investors, people that are too busy to actually be in the day to day. So I feel like by growing myself, I also allow other people to grow too.
That's beautiful. That's a win-win-win, really. So wish we had more time to chat about this, but if our audience want to find more about you, and I know you're active on Instagram, is that where they should find you or anywhere else?
Yeah, just Instagram. It's Shawn Rea, ShawnRea. And it's the same thing on Facebook. We are also hosting a mastermind in October 13th to the 17th. If anybody wants to go to the island, they can reach out to me, and we're selling tickets now.
Yeah, I think our podcast will be out before that. So it'll definitely help you with that. And yeah, Belize is, whether you're going to invest in Belize or not, I just thought Belize is a great place to visit, especially the island. I always butcher the name, but San Pedro, that's easier for me to say.
San Pedro's good.
It's just for a visit, and the food is, I wouldn't say it's the best, but there's a lot of variety of seafood, and the people are really nice. And they have the second biggest coral reef in the world, right?
Yes.
And Shawn, you're a master diver, so I know you guys are going to open up a dive shop there, and Ian as well, I know, going to be an instructor there. So it's really just paying a visit will be worth it for a vacation, and the real estate investing and the journey of it will be the gravy on top. So
yes, exactly. The real estate has definitely allowed us to kind of create our own, well, at least for myself, it's allowed us to create my own lifestyle, something that, I can work and do every single day, which is diving. So now that we have the cash flow from the rental properties and stuff like that, and we're working to open a dive shop on the island, whether or not the dive shop makes a lot of money and it's profitable, it's something that I love doing. And they say, if you love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life. So I'm really excited about that next chapter in our life.
Man, I'm so happy to hear that, where you come from 2013, 2018, and until now. So any of the high income earners are listening to this podcast, hope you guys get inspired, because Shawn worked 3 jobs to get your pay, if not your pay. And if you could do it, I'm sure you'll find a way to do it. If not, find someone you trust and just, took a plunge on it.
Exactly.
And thanks again for being on our podcast, Shawn.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All the links mentioned in this episode are included in the show notes. And if you love this episode, please leave us a rating and review on Apple iTunes. The link is also included in the show notes. And we would really appreciate your help in spreading the word to more high income earners on how they too can maximize both their time and money.
Also, if you still haven't joined our High Income Earners Facebook group, you are missing out on High Income Earners community, where we help each other reach our own version of FIRE.